Your sister is basically brain dead anyway. Gave your seat to Corey because his business meeting actually matters.
Monica, are you out of your mind? Tamika's on life support.
Yeah, buddy, thanks for the seat, not just moving luggage like you do.
The board needs my signature on the fleet authorization. I own this airline. Crestline Air Part Reterminal lease.
Eric, what are you talking about? Eric, wait, I didn't know. We can fix this, we can talk.
Tamika needs me. That's the only thing that matters right now.
Your sister is basically brain dead anyway, Eric. So I gave your seat to Corey because his business meeting actually matters, Monica said, her voice completely flat. I stood there right in the middle of the crowded terminal at Houston's Crest Point International Airport, holding my phone in a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. The hospital had just called. Dr. Avery's words still rang in my ears. Mr. Sanders, your sister Tamika is in critical condition after a head-on collision. She has massive brain swelling and is on life support. We need you here in 5 hours. As her only living relative, you need to make the medical decision on whether we should continue life support or let her go. I had been in a complete panic. I ran from the operations office to the ticketing counter to get on the next flight to Dallas. But when I reached the counter, the terminal screen flashed a bright, cold red. The ticket agent had looked up at me with pity and told me my reservation was gone. My wife Monica had canceled my ticket just 15 minutes prior. And now, here she was, standing near the boarding gate with her hand wrapped tightly around the arm of Corey Watts, a 30-year-old self-proclaimed investment broker she had met 16 months ago. Monica looked stunning. She was wearing a tight red designer dress that hugged her curves, her sharp, beautiful face made up flawlessly. Corey stood beside her in a loud, patterned floral suit with a smug grin on his face, looking down at me as if I were nothing. "Monica, are you out of your mind?" My voice cracked, the raw desperation tearing through my throat. "Tamika is on life support. She might die today. I have less than 5 hours to get to that hospital to make a decision. Why would you cancel my flight?" Monica sighed, rolling her eyes with deep annoyance. "Oh, stop being so dramatic, Eric. She's in a coma. She doesn't even know who is in the room. What difference does it make if you get there today or tomorrow? Corey had a last-minute flight to Chicago for a multi-million-dollar investment pitch, and the flights were completely booked. Since you work in operations here, I knew you could just book yourself on some standby flight later tonight or tomorrow. It's not like your little job at the terminal actually requires you to be anywhere urgently. This Chicago deal could make us rich, whereas your sister's just lying there in a bed. Think about our future for once, Eric." Corey chuckled, patting the lapel of his flashy suit. "Yeah, buddy, thanks for the seat. First class on Crestline Air Partners is really something else. I need to be fresh for my presentation. It's real business, you know, high stakes, not just moving luggage or checking schedules like you do." The sheer, blinding arrogance of her words and the pathetic laughter of the man she was sleeping with hit me like a physical blow. They had no idea. Monica had absolutely no clue that the very airline she was, standing in, the multi-billion-dollar private and commercial carrier Crestline Air Partners, belonged entirely to me. To her, I was just Eric Sanders, a 37-year-old operations specialist who wore a simple blue suit, drove a 7-year-old pickup truck, and came home smelling of jet fuel and cheap terminal coffee. 7 years ago, when we got married, Crestline was a tiny, struggling regional charter company that owned only 2 old twin-engine prop planes. I built it into a multi-billion-dollar empire. But because of what had happened to my father, who had lost everything in a highly publicized, ruthless lawsuit because he flaunted his wealth too loudly, I had sworn never to put my name on the marquee. I had structured the entire corporation through a complex web of anonymous holding companies. I appointed Gregory Whitfield, an experienced airline executive, to be the public face and CEO. I stayed in the background as an operations specialist, loving the quiet safety of anonymity. Monica had loved me back then, or at least she loved the idea of a stable, hard-working man who worshipped her. But as the years went by, and she climbed the corporate ladder in her own career, doing corporate partnerships, Her appetite for status grew. She started noticing who sat where at charity dinners. She started making remarks about my lack of ambition. My simple blue suits became an embarrassment to her. The fact that I didn't drive a European sports car became a point of contention. And then Corey Watts entered her life. "I need that seat back, Monica," I said, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper. I didn't have time to argue about her affair. I didn't have time to explain my wealth. I only had one thought. Tamika. "Call the counter right now and reverse it. I am boarding that plane right now." "I can't do that, Eric," Monica said, her tone turning cold and dismissive. "The ticket has already been transferred to Corey's name. It's done. Stop causing a scene in public. You're embarrassing me. Just go back to your office and find a standby seat. That's what you do, right? You're the operations guy. Go operate." She turned her back on me, taking Corey's arm and walking toward the VIP boarding lane. Corey turned back for a split second, giving me a mock salute. My chest felt like it was physically collapsing. I pulled out my phone to call Gregory Whitfield, but before I could dial, the phone in my hand rang. It was Gregory calling me. I pressed the receiver to my ear, my voice trembling. "Gregory! Eric? Thank God!" Gregory's voice boomed through the speaker, frantic. "The board is pushing for an immediate decision on route adjustments for the private charter fleet. I need the owner's signature on the emergency authorization before we can shift the planes. Where are you?" I pressed the speaker button on my mobile phone. I needed my hands free to clutch my empty boarding pass jacket. "Gregory, I can't sign anything right now," I said, my voice tight and strained. "I'm standing at the gate at Crest Point. My sister Tamika is dying in a hospital in Dallas. I have less than 5 hours to get there, but my seat on Flight 402 was just canceled." There was a silence on the other end, followed by Gregory shifting papers. "What do you mean your seat was canceled? You were booked on a first-class ticket, Eric. I saw the manifest myself this morning. Who canceled it?" "My wife did," I said, looking straight at Monica. Her eyes were wide, her mouth slightly open. "She transferred my seat to Corey Watts. They are standing right here in front of me." Gregory's voice came through the speaker, loud and dripping with disbelief. "She did what? Monica canceled your ticket? Eric, does she not realize that you own the entire damn airline? Crestline Air Partners is your company. You built it from the ground up. Every single plane, every route, every terminal lease is yours. Who does she think she is to cancel the owner's ticket?" The words echoed. The ticket agent behind the counter froze, staring at me with shocked eyes. Monica took a step back, her face instantly draining of color. The smug grin on Corey's face vanished, replaced by sheer panic. "Eric!" Monica stammered, her voice barely a whisper. What did he just say? What is he talking about?" I didn't answer her. I kept my eyes on my phone. "Gregory, I don't have time for this. Tamika needs me. I need to get on a flight to Dallas right now. If I can't get on Flight 402, what are my options?" "I will personally call the captain of Flight 402 and order him to hold the plane," Gregory said, his voice hard. "We will drag that Corey Watts out of your seat and throw him out of the terminal. I'll have security down there in 2 minutes. You are the owner of this airline, Eric. You don't wait for anyone." The temptation was there. I could watch security drag Corey out, and watch Monica beg as she realized the wealth she had thrown away. But the principles I lived by pulled me back. A truly fair system is not one where the powerful can simply take whatever they want, whenever they want, just because they have the authority to do so. Real power isn't about taking things from others to make your own life easier. It is about finding another way when the fastest path requires someone else to pay the price. If I had Corey dragged off that plane, it would cause a massive scene, delay the flight for over 100 innocent passengers who had families to see and businesses to run, and violate the very core of who I was. I was not like my father. I would use wealth as a weapon to crush others for my convenience. "No, Gregory," I said. my voice completely calm now, though my heart was still pounding. Do not hold the flight. Do not touch Corey's seat. The passengers on that plane paid for their tickets and have schedules to keep. I won't delay 100 people just to satisfy my own anger. But Eric, your sister, Gregory began. Find me another way, I interrupted. Look at the schedules. Is there a standby seat on a later flight? Or another carrier? I don't care if I have to lay over in Houston or Austin. Just get me to Dallas before the 5-hour mark. Let me check the system, Gregory muttered, the sound of keyboard clicks rapidly coming through the line. Give me 2 minutes. I'll call you right back. I hung up and slipped the phone back in my pocket. The silence between Monica, Corey, and me was deafening. The noise of the terminal seemed to fade into the background. Eric, Monica said, stepping closer to me. Her hands were trembling, her sharp corporate demeanor completely shattered. Is this a joke? Are you playing some kind of sick game with me? You don't own Crestline. You're an operations specialist. You make $80,000 a year. We live in a modest 3-bedroom house. You drive an old truck. I've seen your bank accounts. You've seen the account I wanted you to see, Monica, I said, my voice dead and empty. The account we used for our household expenses. You never cared to ask about anything else. You were too busy looking at the luxury cars our neighbors drove. No, this is impossible, she whispered, shaking her head. She looked at Corey, then back at me, as if searching for some sign that I was lying. Why would you hide this from me? For 7 years, Eric. We've been married for 7 years. Because of my father, I said. You know what happened to him. You know how he lost everything because he showed off his wealth, attracted the wrong partners, and got ruined in a highly publicized, ruthless lawsuit. He died with nothing, broken and humiliated, because he couldn't stop bragging about his money. I swore never to make that mistake. I built Crestline through anonymous holding companies, so nobody would ever know I was the owner. I wanted a quiet, safe life. I wanted to know that the woman I married loved me for who I was, not for my bank balance. I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt absolutely nothing but pity. And for a long time, I thought you did. But then you started climbing the corporate ladder. You started caring about status, about who sat where at charity dinners, about what logo was on your purse. You began to look down on my blue suit. You became ashamed of my job. And then you met Corey. The gate agent was typing furiously. Her eyes darted from the screen to me, wide with terror and respect. She had just found out that the quiet man in the simple blue suit standing on the other side of her counter was the owner of the corporation. My phone buzzed again. I answered immediately. Gregory, tell me you found something. I did, Eric, but it is not ideal, Gregory said, his voice coming through loud. We have Flight 512, leaving in 35 minutes. It is a direct flight to Dallas, but it is completely sold out. Every single seat is taken. However, since you are the owner, I have already instructed the gate supervisor to bump a passenger from economy. We will offer them a voucher and put them on the next flight. It is standard VIP protocol. The ticket agent looked up, nodding quickly. Yes, Mr. Sanders. I can process the bump right now. It will only take me 30 seconds to select a passenger and reassign their seat to you. I stared at her, then down at my phone. A tight knot formed in my stomach. The image of some unsuspecting traveler, perhaps heading to see a sick relative, flashed through my mind. They had paid their money and arrived on time. Just because I owned the planes didn't give me the right to disrupt their life. Power wasn't a license to be selfish. No, I said firmly into the phone. Do not bump anyone, Gregory. Do not take someone else's seat. Eric, this is your sister we are talking about, Gregory protested, his voice tight with concern. You don't have time to be a saint. The clock is ticking. I'm not trying to be a saint, Gregory. I'm trying to be a decent human being, I replied. That passenger bought their ticket. They have a destination to reach. I will not steal their seat just because I have the power to do so. What else do you have? Gregory sighed over the line. Fine. There is Flight 518. It departs in 50 minutes. It has a 30-minute layover in Austin before continuing to Dallas. It will get you to the hospital in 3.5 hours. That still gives you an hour and a half before your 5-hour deadline. But there is only one seat. Left, Eric. It is a middle seat in the last row, next to the rear lavatory. It is a tight, noisy space. Book it, I said without a second of hesitation. Print the ticket right now. The ticket agent didn't waste a moment. She clicked her mouse, and the ticket machine behind her began to hum, spitting out a fresh boarding pass. She tore it off, slid it into a folder, and handed it to me. Here is your boarding pass for Flight 518, Mr. Sanders. The gate is at the far end of Terminal C. I have already notified the crew that you are coming. Thank you, I said, taking it. As I turned away from the counter, Monica stepped directly into my path. Her face was pale and her eyes were frantic. Eric, please, talk to me. You can't just walk away like this. You own Crestline? How is that even possible? Why didn't you tell me? I'm your wife. We share everything. We used to share everything, Monica, I said, my voice dead. But then you decided that my life wasn't expensive enough for your taste. You wanted luxury, and you found someone who promised to give it to you. Corey stood behind her, his flashy suit looking ridiculous in the terminal lighting. He was sweating, nervously tugging at his collar. He looked at his watch, then at the boarding gate for Flight 402, which was boarding. He wanted to run and escape this nightmare, but he was too terrified to walk away. Eric, buddy, Corey stammered, raising his hands in defense. Listen, I had no idea. If I knew you were the guy who runs this place, I would never have agreed to take the seat. Monica told me you were just a coordinator who could get standby flights any time. It was all her idea, I swear. Monica whipped her head around, glaring at Corey with pure venom. You coward. You're blaming me now? You're the one who complained about how much you hated flying coach. You're the one who told me to get you a first-class seat. Because you said your husband could easily arrange it, Corey yelled back, his voice cracking. You didn't tell me your husband owned the damn airline. Before their argument could escalate any further, a sharp, hurried voice cut through the noise of the terminal. Mr. Sanders. I turned toward the sound. Running through the terminal, clutching a thick manila envelope, was Paula Nash. Paula was 29 years old, Monica's quiet corporate assistant. She was out of breath, her face flushed from running, her hair slightly disheveled. Monica gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief. Paula? What on earth are you doing here? Why aren't you at the office managing the quarterly reports? Paula didn't even look at Monica. She stopped in front of me, leaning over for a brief second to catch her breath, before straightening up and holding out the manila envelope. Mr. Sanders, I am so sorry to interrupt you, but I had to come. I drove straight from the office when I realized what was happening. My conscience wouldn't let me stay silent anymore. I couldn't live with myself if I let this happen. I looked down at the thick envelope, then at Paula's anxious face. Paula, what is this? It is proof, Mr. Sanders, Paula said, her voice shaking but resolute. Proof of what Monica has been doing. She didn't cancel your flight today because of a last-minute business emergency for Corey. She planned this whole thing days ago. She knew exactly what she was doing. I have the files and documents in here. I stared at Paula, my fingers gripping the ticket counter. What do you mean she planned this 2 days ago? Paula took a breath, looking at Monica. Monica knew about the accident before you, Mr. Sanders. The Dallas hospital called her first as your emergency contact on Tuesday morning. Instead of telling you, she had me find your flight schedule and calendar a reminder to cancel your seat the moment you booked. That is a lie, Monica shrieked, lunging forward to claw at the manila envelope in Paula's hands. Paula, you are fired. You are a lying assistant trying to ruin my marriage. Give me those papers right now." But Paula was fast. She stepped behind me, using my body as a shield. I put my arm out, blocking Monica. My chest felt freezing cold, a hollow, dark vacuum opening where my heart used to be. "Let her speak, Monica," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Eric, she is lying because of a bad performance review last week," Monica screamed, her face contorting. "She's trying to get back at me. You're going to believe this girl over your own wife?" "I have the printouts, Mr. Sanders," Paula said, handing me papers from the envelope. "This is an export from her corporate Outlook calendar and messaging log. Look at the date. Tuesday morning." I looked down at the papers. My eyes scanned the lines. It was all there, printed in cold, black ink. A calendar entry on Monica's official work schedule, dated 2 days ago. Process cancellation for ES flight to Dallas. Below it was a chat log between Monica and Corey from the same afternoon. Monica: "Eric's sister got into a bad wreck. The hospital says she's in a coma. I haven't told him yet. He's going to try to fly out there the second he finds out. I'll let him book his ticket first, then cancel it right before boarding. That first-class seat on Flight 402 will open up, and I'll transfer it to you so you can get to your Chicago meeting." Corey: "Are you sure? Won't he notice?" Monica: "He's an idiot. He's just an operations guy. He'll think it was a system glitch or that he can just jump on a standby plane. He does it all the time. He doesn't need to be there anyway. His sister is practically dead. Let's make sure you get that Chicago deal." The betrayal was so cold-blooded that I couldn't breathe. She had known for 2 days that my sister was in a coma and withheld it, waiting for the hospital to call me, just to steal my seat for her lover. "You knew," I whispered, the words choking in my throat. I looked up from the papers, staring at the woman I had spent 7 years of my life with. "You knew Tamika was dying, and you kept it from me, just to give this parasite a first-class seat." "Eric, it's not what it looks like," Monica stammered, her voice suddenly losing its venom, replaced by a desperate panic. She reached out to grab my arm, but I stepped back, letting her hand fall through the empty air. "I was going to tell you. I swear. Corey's meeting was so important, and I thought Tamika had more time. The doctor said she was stable. I didn't think it was this urgent." "Stable?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried across the quiet gate area. "She is on life support, Monica. Her brain is swelling. They might turn off the machines in less than 5 hours." Corey was slowly backing away, his eyes darting toward the boarding tunnel. He looked like a cornered rat, trying to find an exit without being noticed. "Look, I didn't know about the sister part," he muttered, raising his hands. "I really didn't. Monica just told me she had a free seat. I'm just going to go board my flight now." "You aren't going anywhere, Corey." A sharp, stern voice echoed from behind us. We all turned around slowly. Walking toward us with a steady, dignified pace was Diane Hendricks, Monica's 60-year-old mother. She was dressed in a simple, elegant gray coat, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her face was set in a hard, pale expression of absolute disgust. Monica gasped, her jaw dropping. "Mom, what on earth are you doing here?" Diane ignored her daughter. She walked straight up to me, her eyes filled with a deep, sorrowful pain. "I drove Paula here, Eric. She came to my house first because she was too afraid to face Monica alone. She showed me the messages. I couldn't believe my own daughter could be this cruel." Diane turned to Monica, her gaze so cold it seemed to freeze the air between them. "I warned you, Monica. 2 years ago, I sat you down in my kitchen and told you that you were heading down a dark path. I told you that you were turning into your father. He abandoned us, he lied, and he chased after a flashy, empty life of luxury because he was too insecure to appreciate the honest, loving family he had. And now, look at you. You have become worse than him." "Mom, you don't understand," Monica cried, tears finally spilling over her eyes. "Eric is a multi-billionaire. He owns this entire airline. He lied to me for 7 years. He kept all this money from me while I had to work my fingers to the bone. Why are you taking his side?" Diane looked at her daughter with a profound sadness. "I am taking the side of decency, Monica. Even if Eric was a D-class worker, what you did is monstrous. You let a girl lie in a coma, you hid it from her brother, and you canceled his ticket to let your lover fly. First class. Money didn't make you do that, Monica. Your own rotten heart did." Monica shrank back under her mother's fierce, unwavering gaze, mascara staining her cheeks as she stared at the incriminating papers in my hands. Beside her, Corey Watts was already sliding his designer luggage backward, eyes scanning the crowd for security. His flashy floral suit, once a symbol of confidence, now felt like a ridiculous target. He was trembling, completely humiliated. "Monica, I'm out of here," Corey stammered, his voice cracking. "This is a family matter. I have a business meeting in Chicago." "You aren't boarding that flight, Corey," I said, my voice quiet but filled with a cold authority that made him freeze. I turned to the gate agent. She stood behind the counter, hands hovered over her keyboard, waiting for my command. She knew exactly who I was now. "Cancel his ticket," I told her, pointing at Corey. "His seat was booked using a reservation fraudulently transferred from mine. This is my airline. I want him off this plane, and I want him blacklisted from every Crestline Air Partners flight globally, starting right now." The agent's fingers flew across the keyboard, deactivating Corey's boarding pass. "Wait, you can't do that," Corey shouted, face turning red. "Monica paid for that ticket. You can't just ban me." "I can, and I just did," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "Now, get out of my terminal before I have security escort you out in handcuffs for fraud." Corey looked at Diane, who stared at him with cold, silent contempt, then at me. Realizing he had absolutely no cards left to play in this high-stakes situation, he grabbed his suitcase, turned on his heel, and practically ran toward the exit, desperately trying to disappear. Monica watched him run away down the terminal, her face filled with absolute disbelief and growing terror. The man she had chosen over her husband, the man she had sacrificed her entire marriage for, had abandoned her without a single second thought the moment his own comfort was threatened. "Eric," Monica sobbed, "please, listen to me. I made a mistake. We've been married for 7 years. We can't throw everything away." "It wasn't a mistake, Monica," I said, holding up the printed logs. "You planned this 2 days ago. You knew Tamika was dying, and chose to hide it, to give your lover my seat. That is cold, calculated cruelty." I turned my back on her. Every second I wasted was a second I wasn't with my sister, who was fighting for her life in Dallas. "Paula," I said, turning to the assistant. "Thank you. You did the right thing." "I'm sorry I didn't bring it sooner, Mr. Sanders," Paula whispered. "Diane," I said, "thank you for coming." Diane nodded, her eyes wet with tears. "Go, Eric. Go be with Tamika. Don't worry about anything here. Just go." I walked away toward Terminal C, where Flight 518 was waiting, ignoring Monica's screams. I reached the gate just as they were about to close the boarding door. "Mr. Eric Sanders?" the gate agent asked. "Yes," I said, handing her my boarding pass. She scanned it, her eyes widening. "We've been waiting for you, sir. Welcome aboard." I stepped onto the plane, slowly walking past the spacious first-class cabin and heading deep into the cramped coach section. My seat was 32E, a middle seat in the last row of the aircraft, right next to the rear lavatories. Squeezing past the other passengers, I sat down in the cramped space. My shoulders were pressed tightly against them, but as I buckled my seatbelt, I felt a strange peace. I had refused to bump an innocent passenger or use my power to make someone else suffer for my convenience. This cramped, noisy middle seat was the price of my principles. As the plane pushed back, I closed my eyes and prayed for Tamika. "Please, hold on," I whispered. "Just hold on until I get there." When the plane landed in Austin for its layover, I pulled out my vibrating phone. Monica had left numerous missed calls and messages, her name flashing continuously on the screen, and now she was calling again. I finally answered, solely because I needed her to stop calling so I could keep the line clear. "Eric, please," Monica sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was this serious. I didn't think Tamika was in a coma. If I knew, I would never have canceled that ticket. Please, we can fix this. You're a billionaire. We can have any life we want now. I'll do anything." I listened to her beg, disgusted that even now she only cared about my money. "You don't get it, Monica," I said quietly. "You don't need to know how serious a situation is to do the right thing. The problem is that you were willing to plan to hurt me just to give your lover a seat." "Eric, please." "Goodbye, Monica," I said, and hung up the phone. I blocked her number immediately. I sat in that cramped seat as the plane prepared for the second leg of the trip to Dallas, staring out of the small window at the dark, wet tarmac. My mind drifted back to our early years of marriage, when we had nothing but big dreams, a tiny, drafty apartment, and each other. We used to share a single order of cheap takeout on Friday nights, laughing about how we would make it someday. She didn't care about my lack of expensive suits or fancy cars then. She had seemed genuinely content with my simple, hard-working life. But wealth, even when completely hidden, has a way of deeply testing the people around you, and Monica had failed that test completely. She chose the illusion of luxury over the solid reality of love, leaving us both with nothing but ashes. Now, as the plane's engines roared to life, I turned my thoughts entirely to Tamika, desperate to reach her side before the final grains of time ran out. The flight to Dallas was an agonizing descent. The engine hum matched my heartbeat. I watched the minutes tick away. It had been nearly 4 hours since Dr. Avery's call. I had exactly 1 hour left to reach Memorial Southgate Medical Center and decide whether my sister, Tamika, would live. I squeezed my eyes shut, holding the silver locket around my neck. Inside was a picture of Tamika and me when we were kids, standing by our father's first plane. After he passed away, penniless, she was my only remaining family. She was the only person who truly knew me, who loved me before the wealth, and who stayed by my side when I tried to rebuild our family name. The woman next to me smiled sympathetically. "Are you all right? You look extremely anxious," she murmured. "My sister is in the hospital in Dallas," I replied, staring down at my clenched hands. "I need to get there before they make a final decision on her life support. She is my only family left in the world." Her eyes softened with motherly compassion. "I will pray for her and for you. Hold on, we are almost there, and she will feel your presence when you arrive." When we landed, I grabbed my bag. I squeezed past passengers, ran through the terminal, bypassed baggage claim, and burst into the humid air. I waved down a yellow taxi. "Memorial Southgate Medical Center, emergency entrance," I told the driver, tossing a $100 bill onto the front seat. "Please speed. My sister is dying." The driver nodded, slammed his foot on the gas, and navigated through traffic. I watched the skyscrapers blur past, my phone clutched tightly. We pulled up to the emergency entrance with 20 minutes left on the clock. I didn't even wait for the car to stop before I opened the door and quickly sprinted through the sliding doors of the hospital. The familiar, cold smell of antiseptic hit my nose immediately, triggering a wave of intense nausea and fear. I ran as fast as I could to the reception desk. "Tamika Sanders," I gasped, leaning against the counter. "I'm her brother, Eric. Where is her room?" The receptionist looked at her screen, her expression turning solemn. "ICU, 4th floor, room 412. Dr. Avery is waiting, Mr. Sanders. Go straight up." I took the stairs 3 at a time. In the ICU, A tall, gray-haired man in a lab coat was waiting near the desk. He looked up, his sharp eyes locking onto me. "Mr. Sanders?" he asked, walking forward. "I'm Eric," I panted. "Tell me I am not too late." "You have 10 minutes," Dr. Avery said, putting a hand on my shoulder. "Come with me. We need to talk before we go into her room." He led me into a quiet family consultation room. The walls were painted a sterile beige, offering no comfort. Dr. Avery sat down opposite me, holding a thick medical folder containing her charts. "Tamika suffered massive trauma to her head during the collision," Dr. Avery explained, his voice low and professional. "She has severe brain swelling, and she has not responded to external stimuli since she arrived. She is currently on a mechanical ventilator to breathe. The pressure inside her skull is dangerously high. As her primary emergency contact and only immediate family, the medical decision rests on your shoulders. We can continue the life support, or we can choose to withdraw the ventilator and let her pass peacefully." My heart felt crushed. "Is there any hope, doctor? Any chance at all?" Dr. Avery hesitated, looking down at the file. "Statistically, with this level of swelling, the prognosis is extremely poor. However, the brain is unpredictable. If we keep her on the ventilator for another 48 hours, the swelling might begin to subside, and we can get a clearer picture. But keeping her on these machines is a difficult process, and there are no guarantees." I stood up, walking to the small window that overlooked the hospital parking lot. I thought about Monica and Corey, who had been willing to let Tamika die alone, just so they could enjoy a luxury flight. I thought about my own principles, that every single life has value, and that we must never take the easy way out when a soul is on the line. "We keep her on," I said, turning back to Dr. Avery, my voice steady. "We keep the ventilator on for another 48 hours. I am not giving up on my sister. She fought for me when we had nothing, and I will fight for her now." Dr. Avery nodded, quiet respect in eyes. "Very well, Mr. Sanders. We will proceed with 48 hours of intense monitoring and keep her on life support. Let's go see her." He led me down the quiet hallway and pushed open the door to room 412. The room was dark, lit only by the glowing green screens of the heart monitor and the rhythmic, mechanical hiss of the ventilator breathing for my sister. Tamika lay in the center of the bed, her face pale, a bandage wrapped tightly around her forehead. Tubes ran into her arms and mouth. I walked over and sat in the plastic chair beside her bed. I took her hand. It was cold and limp, but it was still her. "I'm here, Tamika," I whispered, my tears falling freely onto her blanket. "I made it. I'm not leaving you." I sat in that chair for hours, holding her hand, talking to her about our childhood, our father, and the future we had to build. Around 10 o'clock that evening, as the hospital fell completely silent, I felt a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. I froze, holding my breath. The small, pale fingers of Tamika's hand twitched slightly against my palm, followed by a soft, positive reflex in her eyelids. I jumped up, tears of joy streaming down my face, and pressed the call button for Dr. Avery. Dr. Avery rushed in, checking Tamika's pupils and pulse. I stood in silence, hands clenched into tight fists. The heart monitor beeped steadily, but the air felt lighter, charged with sudden, fragile hope. "Her pupils are sluggish, but reacting to light, Mr. Sanders." Dr. Avery smiled. "The pressure monitor shows a clear downward trend. Brain swelling is subsiding. Keeping her on the ventilator was definitely the right call. Her body is fighting back." I sank back deeply into the plastic chair, letting out a long, shuddering breath of absolute relief. I reached out and took Tamika's hand again, feeling the slight, warm twitch of her fingers. "Thank you, doctor," I whispered. For 48 hours, I stayed in that hospital room. I slept on the cramped recliner, waking at every beep. I washed my face in the tiny bathroom, refusing to step outside. I wanted to be the first thing Tamika saw. My phone remained on silent, screen lighting up with notifications from my legal team and Gregory Whitfield, but I ignored them. My focus was entirely on my sister's chest. On the second morning, as the pale sun began to peer through the thin hospital blinds, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It wasn't Monica. It was Diane Hendricks. I stepped out into the quiet hallway to answer the call. "Hello, Diane," I said, my voice hoarse and exhausted. "Eric," Diane said, her voice sounding incredibly old and tired. "I'm calling to check on Tamika. How is she doing?" "She is stabilizing, Diane," I said, leaning my head against the cold hallway wall. "The swelling in her brain is going down. She twitched her fingers and her eyes are reacting. The doctors are highly optimistic that she will make a recovery." I heard Diane let out a soft, deeply emotional sob on the other end of the line. "Thank God," she whispered. "I have been praying for her every hour, Eric. She is a sweet, strong girl. She deserves to live." There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was steady but filled with a profound, heavy sorrow. "I am not calling to defend Monica, Eric," Diane said firmly. "I saw the messages Paula printed out. I saw the cold, calculated way she planned to keep your sister's tragedy from you, just to accommodate that pathetic man. I am so deeply sorry, Eric. I feel I failed. I did not teach her where the boundary is. The line of decency you must never cross, no matter how much money or status is at stake." "You didn't fail, Diane," I said softly, meaning every word. "You have always been good to me, and you've always been a decent, honest person. Monica made her own choices. She wanted a life of luxury and status, and she was willing to step on anyone, including her own husband, to get it." "I know," Diane sighed. "She is a wreck, Eric, crying about how you own Crestline and the billions she could have had. She doesn't realize her greed destroyed everything. She still thinks she lost a wealthy husband, not her soul." "I am filing for divorce next week, Diane," I said quietly. "You should," Diane agreed immediately, without hesitation. "She does not deserve you, Eric. She never did. Take care of your sister. I will not bother you again. Thank you, Diane," I said, and hung up the phone. The next day, the doctors successfully weaned Tamika off the mechanical ventilator. When the tube was removed, she coughed weakly, blinked against the bright lights, and looked straight at me. Her voice was nothing more than a dry, raspy whisper, but it was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. "Eric," she mumbled, her eyes drifting around the sterile room. "What happened?" "You were in an accident, sweetie," I said, my tears flowing as I gently kissed her warm forehead. "But you're safe now. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." Once Tamika was stable, I called my attorney, Marcus Vance, instructing him to draft the divorce petition immediately. I was ready to close this dark, painful chapter of my life forever and build a new future grounded in real trust. "I want a clean break, Marcus," I told him. "I will not dispute any assets she currently holds under her name, our house, her car, her savings. She can keep everything we accumulated. I only want what is mine, my premarital share of Crestline and my family inheritance. Let her keep the material things. I don't want a penny from her, and she gets none of mine." "Are you sure, Eric?" Marcus asked. "With the evidence of her infidelity and her actions, we could easily strip her of those assets in court." "I am sure," I replied. "To me, peace of mind and my sister's health are worth more than any house or bank account. Let her keep the shell of the life she wanted." Within a week, the divorce papers were served to Monica at our house. The stark, cold reality of her situation hit her with the devastating force of a Category 5 hurricane. When she realized that I was not going to fight her for the house, she initially felt a brief, shallow surge of relief. But that relief vanished when she realized that without my hidden billions, she was stuck with a heavy mortgage she couldn't afford on her corporate salary alone. And then came the final blow to her vanity. Corey Watts, the flashy investment broker she had sacrificed her marriage for, vanished within a month. The moment he realized he had been blacklisted from Crestline Air Partners, and that his reputation in the business community was completely ruined after the public airport scene, he packed his expensive designer luggage. He didn't leave her a note. He didn't send a simple text. He simply blocked Monica's number and left the state, chasing another wealthy, unsuspecting target elsewhere, leaving her completely alone and broken in the empty house. 3 months after the divorce papers were served, the dust had finally settled, leaving behind a quiet, peaceful, and beautifully serene reality that felt deeply earned. The stressful legal proceedings had been remarkably swift. Monica, desperate to hold on to any shred of the lifestyle she had enjoyed, readily accepted the settlement that left her with our Suburban, house, and her car. My attorney, Marcus, shook his head in disbelief, calling me far too generous with my ex-wife. But I didn't care about the Suburban house anymore. I didn't care about the money we left behind. I had my precious freedom, and more importantly, I had my beloved sister, which was all that truly mattered to me. Monica soon found that maintaining a large, expensive house on her sole corporate salary was completely impossible. Forced to sell it at a loss, she moved into a very small, cramped apartment across town. Her luxury circle dissolved overnight. The high society friends, who once filled her social media feed, stopped inviting her to dinners. She was left with the very thing she had tried to escape: an ordinary, quiet life, but without the husband who had loved her unconditionally. Corey Watts was long gone. Once blacklisted from Crestline Air Partners, he couldn't book a single flight. Word of his behavior at the airport spread quickly through Houston's tight business community. Potential investors stopped returning his calls. Realizing his reputation was entirely ruined, he packed his bags and left for Florida, searching for a new place where nobody knew his history. For me, only Tamika's recovery mattered. After 2 weeks in the ICU at Memorial Southgate, she moved to rehabilitation. Brain damage did not materialize, thanks to the quick action to reduce swelling in those critical 48 hours. It was a long road of physical therapy, but Tamika fought hard. 3 months after the accident, she was discharged, walking slowly with a wooden cane. On her very first day home, we went to a beautiful, quiet park near my new apartment. Sitting on a wooden bench under the warm sun, we drank cheap takeout coffee just like we used to when we were much younger and full of simple dreams. "You saved my life, Eric," she said quietly, leaning her head against my shoulder. "I just kept the machines on, Tamika," I replied, wrapping an arm around her. "No, it's more," she said, clutching the silver locket around her neck. "You stayed when it was easier to look away. You didn't take the shortcut." Her words stayed with me. They echoed the principles I had lived by, the same principles that had guided my entire life and career. I realized that the pain we had gone through shouldn't just be a private memory. It needed to mean something. It needed to help others who found themselves in the same terrifying position I had been in at the airport terminal. The following month, I sat down with Gregory Whitfield in my quiet operations office. We didn't talk about flight schedules or route adjustments. Instead, I laid out a new plan. "I want to establish a permanent charitable foundation," I told Gregory. "We will call it the Crestline Emergency Family Support Program, funded entirely by Crestline Air Partners." Gregory leaned back in his leather chair, listening intently to my words. "What is the mission, Eric? We will partner with major emergency hospitals, starting with Memorial Southgate in Dallas. When a patient is admitted in critical condition and their immediate family is in another city, the hospital can issue an emergency travel request to us. We will sponsor their travel completely, whether on our commercial flights or private charters. There will be no standby queues, no questions, and zero cost. If a doctor says they need to be there for a decision, we get them there." Gregory smiled, a look of genuine respect on his seasoned face. "It's a beautiful idea, Eric. It costs the company a significant amount of money, but we can easily absorb it. I'll have the legal team set up the foundation by the end of the week. I don't want any press releases, Gregory, I added firmly. No public relations campaigns, no charity galas, and no names on the planes. We do this quietly. The people who need this help don't care about our branding. They only care about reaching their loved ones. I understand, Gregory nodded. We will keep it completely anonymous, just like the owner. 3 months later, the program was fully operational. On a quiet, overcast Tuesday morning, I stood by the large glass window of our main maintenance hangar at Crest Point International Airport. Below me, a flight was preparing for departure. It was a simple regional twin-engine plane, beautifully painted in the blue and white colors of Crestline. Gregory walked up beside me, handing me a thin leather folder. This is the first manifest under the new program, Eric. A young man from Houston. His father was admitted to Memorial Southgate this morning after a sudden stroke. He is the only relative who can authorize the life-saving surgery. I opened the folder, looking at the name on the ticket. I didn't say a single word, feeling a profound, deep sense of purpose washing over me. I simply took my pen and quietly signed the approval line, authorizing the very first flight of our new program. We stood together in silence, watching from the hangar window as the plane pushed back, taxied down the runway, and lifted smoothly into the gray, morning sky, carrying a worried son back to his family. There are decisions you make not because you know the outcome, but because they are right. You do not choose the shortcut. You do not take away another's opportunity or seat just because you have the power to do so. True decency is not a performance. It is what you do when the world is not watching, when the terminals are empty, and the only witness is your conscience.